Hello, good evening, fans. My name is Paul Mount, by there, and this is my World of Stuff. Welcome back. If you're new, and I've had a few new subscribers in the last few days, which is quite odd because I've not posted anything for a week, so welcome aboard to this smorgasbord and potpourri of random bits and pieces. As I mentioned, I've not done anything for a week. Been a bit busy. I was away for a couple of days and catching up with things, so just didn't really have time to sit and ramble in front of the camera. I did, however, edit the third part of my Doctor Who rankings series, third of four. Put that all together, edited it, spent a couple of hours editing it, uploaded it, realised I had to go back in and edit it again, and realised as I uploaded it that for some reason the video itself was blank. All the edits were there, but the video itself was blank. So I had to take that down quite quickly. I think there might have been one or two people who were looking at it and thinking, what the hell is this? So I'm going to re-edit that shortly. That'll be going up again in the next couple of days, and then hopefully next week I'll record the fourth and final part. So thank you for bearing with the channel. I'm still here, and today I'm doing a little piece on the first episode of Loki. Glorious Purpose, the first episode of the long-awaited new 6-part Disney Plus Marvel Studios series starring Tom Hiddleston. We've had the first episode. It dropped on Wednesday, so I'm a little bit late at doing my comments on it, but I wanted to percolate in my head and marinade and let my thoughts on it settle. There's a review which I've written, which is up on the Starburst Magazine website, starburstmagazine.com, so you can look at the review there. So yeah, this is the third live-action Marvel series. Now, I thoroughly enjoyed WandaVision, which I thought was really groundbreaking and very different, and I even enjoyed The Falcon and Winter Soldier, which I know some people are a little bit marmite about, but I thought it was a good adventure story which took the characters and the Marvel universe into slightly darker places, and dealt, I think, quite sympathetically with social commentary issues, which are always a problem these days. People are always screaming that things are too woke, but I think that Marvel in that series particularly dealt with pertinent and important contemporary issues in a way that didn't come across as preachy, didn't come across as tub thumping. And although it wasn't a perfect series, it was a good adventure story. Loki was always going to be something a little bit different, of course, because here you've got a series which is centred on essentially a villain. We've seen Tom Hiddleston now since he appeared in Thor back in 2011-12, one of the earliest of the Phase 1 Marvel films, and he's always been the god of mischief, of course. Thor's twisted, duplicitous, mean-minded brother, the god of mischief, as I say, and he's appeared in several Marvel films. He was the main villain in Avengers Assemble, and he's cropped up ever since. And of course, in the Marvel timeline, he died at the beginning of Avengers Infinity War, only for something very strange to happen in Avengers Endgame. I'm not going to go into the whole storyline of these films because I imagine that most of you will know them and have seen them. But our heroes, the Avengers, had to go back in time to try and change what had happened as far as Thanos and his finger snap was concerned. But in doing so, Loki was able to disappear into a wormhole, thus creating an alternate timeline, which isn't really well regarded by an organisation called the Time Variant Authority. Once again, Loki deals with issues that have cropped up in Marvel comics that I'm not aware of, so I've had to do my research. Time Variant Authority apparently appeared in 1986, and they've sort of threaded their way throughout comics history ever since, and it's an interesting concept. It reminded me a little bit of, initially, certainly the Time Lords in Doctor Who, these characters who sort of guard the timelines. And of course the Time Lords never interfere, they never try to put things right, they try to make sure that people don't have undue influence over the time, but they very rarely step in. Slightly different here, the Time Variant Authority are sort of a militaristic force who enact their own particular form of justice. Now, at the beginning of episode 1 of Loki, we find out where our anti-hero disappears to, and he travels through that wormhole, and he arrives in Outer Mongolia, where he's met by some baffled locals, and before he can exert his dominance over them, these masked and armed figures appear through portals and drag him off to an establishment called the Time Variant Authority, where he's completely baffled at what's going on. He's stripped of his Asgardian leathers and put in his rather bland prison fatigues, and it's broadly explained that by travelling out of the timeline, he is an anomaly. He's a variant. He's deviated from his planned timeline and lives when he should be dead. Although he doesn't know that initially. That only becomes apparent to him later on. And the Time Variant Authority, they step in and put the timelines right. And this is all described in the narrative in a very nice animated sequence that really does a lot of the heavy lifting as far as the exposition is concerned, because this is an exposition heavy episode. There's not a great deal of action in it. It's very much about establishing characters. We meet Owen Wilson as the TVA's Mobius, I think it's Mobius K. Mobius, who specialises in investigating crimes and criminals who interfere with time. Across the episode, Loki is confronted with himself, what he's done in the past, the person he has been, the person he is, the person he could be. And I think that's where the strength of this episode is, the writing. It's written by Michael Waldron, who has written or possibly created Rick and Morty, an animated series that deals with similar sort of time travel shenanigans. I've seen 1 or 2 episodes of it. I'm not a huge fan. But it deals with sort of similar, quite convoluted time travel concepts and issues dealing with the consequences of sort of time travel. And the strength of this episode particularly is the one quite extended sequence where Loki and Mobius are just sitting in a room talking, and they're talking about Loki. And it's a beautiful piece of character work because it establishes both of them really. It establishes where we are with Loki, the many sort of different facets of Loki we've seen over the films, and it establishes Mobius as a sympathetic investigator. A lot to recommend in this episode. It sort of sets up the premise of the series in a sort of surprise ending where Loki is effectively enlisted by Mobius to help them track down a killer who's apparently drifting through time or appearing in different time zones and killing off TVA agents who are called Minutemen. And the identity of the killer is interesting because you do wonder, well, where are we going? Where is this going to take us for the next 5 episodes? That's intriguing. And I think intriguing is the best way to describe this. As I say, it's not the typical Marvel big action thing, but it is quite high concept. And what I like about these series, that they are demonstrating that Marvel isn't just wham bang action and special effects. It is about character and it is about pushing the boundaries of storytelling, because people are always saying there's a Marvel formula. Well, I don't know that there is. I think that Marvel can go anywhere it wants to go, and I think that these 3 series we've had so far demonstrate that quite excitingly. So as the films that are branching out into slightly more obscure characters, which could be a testing time, particularly with some of the resistance they're meeting from Chinese markets who aren't particularly happy with the likes of Shang-Chi, and apparently won't be releasing that one, which must be a blow because I think that Marvel must have been anticipating big bucks from that one. But Marvel is still stretching what they do, and they're doing it creatively and intelligently, and that's largely down to Kevin Feige, who's the director of Marvel Studios, who's really got his hand on the till and he knows exactly the way he wants Marvel Studios to develop, and they've rarely put a foot wrong. And I think Loki is another example of them not putting a foot wrong. It's their television arm really stretching itself, and I think that's what the TV shows can probably do, possibly more than the films. Across this sort of multi-episode narrative, they can tell different types of stories in different locations and establishing different worlds and multiverses and things that will presumably serve the films as the film series progresses. So a very solid start for this. I'm sure that it's a great episode. I enjoyed it. Obviously it's an establishing episode, so we know that things will change and adapt, and I'm hesitant to say get better because that suggests I didn't like this episode. I did like it very much, to the extent that I'm giving it a big fat 8 out of 10, because I know more is to come. I know that some members of the press have seen the second episode and they do say that it really goes off in different directions again, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this one develops. At the moment though, I'm saying it's another Mighty Marvel winner. I often think that I'm sort of blinkered when it comes to Marvel, and that I unreservedly enjoy everything they do. I love the universe, I love the characters, I love this world building that they've done, but I'm not blind to the faults. I'm not a big fan of Captain Marvel, I'm not a big fan of Thor Ragnarok. Iron Man 2 isn't great, although I'm going to rewatch that soon to see if I can reevaluate it. And so this is not always, sweetness and light, but generally I think that Marvel is a very exciting universe that's been created out there, and I'm really thrilled and excited to see where it goes next, and Loki is very much part of that. So that's Loki. Part 2 drops next Wednesday, and I will hopefully do a review of that shortly afterwards. Until then, look out for the part 3 of Doctor Who when it finally arrives. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave comments, tell your friends, and until next time we meet, hey, you keep taking this stuff.